Friday night, Klay Thompson was back in action. Game 4, scoring 28 points. And yesterday, he was doing his best Kawhi impression at the podium. Say, what?
We all know about Game 6 Klay, but there might not be a Game 6. Are we going to see a Game 5 Klay instead now?
Do you think that was intentional?
I don't know.
I feel like it had to be, because I've heard Klay Thompson laugh, and that's not Klay Thompson's laugh. I think Klay was having a little fun at Kawhi's expense. I don't think it was anything mean-spirited, but that had to be intentional.
I don't think so. I don't think Klay made up his mind before the press conference. Someone's going to say something that's going to trigger a Kawhi laugh. I think
he was dared to do it by someone. I think someone said, whoever can sneak in a Kawhi laugh gets $5. That's what I think happened.
I think that's exactly what goes on in NBA locker rooms. I double dog dare you for $5.
We used to do that at our old station.
Oh, at NBA locker rooms.
If you could get a line from the Honeymooners into the show, I never heard of the show, you will get this. Wait, what? Did we go off the rails?
I can't. To the moon, Alice. My God.
Go.
Did you have any other black people that worked at that station? Was there any diversity?
There was. A good friend of ours, a mutual colleague.
Our friend
Menifee and I worked together on that show.
Thank goodness.
Okay.
Thank goodness. Please, for the love of God.
Time for some stories to start your
Just like our own workspace, the office.
Sponsored
to a Honeymooners line.
By Gillette Clear Gel.
Sure, that's what Klay and Steph were talking about.
Kevin Durant practiced yesterday and is
Get
now
a line
listed
from I Love Lucy in there.
I did think it was a little dated. Listed as questionable tonight in Toronto. Question is, how effective will he be? All right, Nick, buckle up. Is Durant's return the only chance for the Warriors now?
Yeah, and the path is actually simple. Now, it's almost impossible, but they can tell themselves it's simple. Get KD back. Win tonight. You then go back, final game ever at Oracle, win or lose. Close that thing out with a win, and then Game 7 for a chance for everybody on the Warriors to exercise the only demon they have in this 5-year run, blowing a 3-1 lead of their own that necessitated them bringing in Kevin Durant. Now, I do not think any of those things are going to happen, but the first step for any path to victory for the Warriors involves Durant taking the court tonight.
This is what I worry about, because before the series, none of the Warriors thought they needed KD to be able to win the championship. Now that we've gotten in it, you've heard Klay and others, Draymond, say, yeah, we miss KD. Steph, man, he's a special player. What if KD's not at 100%? So then the players see him. They put all that energy in him being out there and being 100%. Do they lose the little bit of faith that they have? You can't put too much into them relying on Kevin Durant. They know he's not practiced. He's only going to be a shell of himself. So I worry about the mental state of the Warriors if they don't see him on the court at 100%.
All right, well then, with KD questionable and Klay Thompson working his way back from injury, the brunt of that work now falls to Steph Curry. Game 4, he scored 27 points on 22 shots. He looked exhausted for much of the game. Warriors now sit on the brink of elimination tonight. Nick, what do they need from Steph if they're going to win Game 5?
I mean, not quite Game 3, Steph, but close to it. And keep in mind, in Game 3, they got Game 3, Steph, and they still lost that game. But, I mean, yeah, this is what happens at times, and there are other guys we have heavily criticized for this. But in the NBA Finals, where in one game you unload the clip, so to speak, that wears on you for the next game, because Steph did look tired. He did look fatigued. He didn't look like he had the legs under him that he had in Game 3. The only one day of rest between the only time in the series where you have to play 2 games in 3 days came at a rough time for the Warriors and for Steph. But what do they need from Steph? What they got in 2015 Game 5, series tied 2 apiece, 37 points, a 17 in the 4th quarter. They need that type of performance from Steph, and I don't know if he has it in him against this defense.
Didn't they have a bench then?
They did have a bench.
Oh, okay. So even if Steph goes off like he did in game number 3, because they don't have a bench and because they're bigs, that means their center and their forwards aren't playing well, it's hard for them to be able to win. So even if Steph has a historic game, the other guys don't have confidence shooting, and you have to be able to make shots. Outside of Klay and outside of Steph, who else is going to be able to make shots and with a big show up? That's been a huge problem.
All right, moving on to Kawhi Leonard now. He has dominated the finals thus far, and teams have taken notice as the quest to woo him has begun. According to reports, the Knicks are confident they'll get a meeting with Leonard in the hopes of convincing him to come to New York. See you buying that Kawhi could end up here?
I feel like besides his overall experience in Toronto, if he's not going to end up in Los Angeles, which is his home, then why wouldn't he come to New York? If you look at it from a marketing standpoint, absent of what Toronto can do from a contract standpoint, if he goes anywhere else but California, I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up in New York City.
I know it's very hard to pin Kawhi Leonard down on just about anything, but I do feel like we know publicly there's 3 places he could be playing basketball for next year. The Clippers, who to me are the clear favorites, even if the Raptors win. The Raptors, who are as close as they've ever been. And then a third team that probably is less than 10%, but the only other team on that list I believe to be the Knicks. I don't think the Lakers are a viable option for him. I think it's Clippers, Raptors, and then coming up in the third spot, barely there, is the Knicks, but they're on the list, and other teams like Dallas that has cap space are not going to be on the list.
All right, well, the reason everyone wants him, Kawhi has been lights out this postseason. He's averaging over 30 points per game in the finals. See, is Kawhi now the best player in the NBA?
I'm not ready to say he's the best player in the NBA, but I think that he will be in the conversation. I think it brings so much intrigue to free agency, the way he's played, how he's developed his game, and it really takes you back into, it's really sad how he left San Antonio, because San Antonio's been a great organization. There is no coach that's coaching in the NBA I have more respect than Popovich. And it really boiled down to Kawhi was concerned about his body. Now, behind the scenes, the Spurs did ask him. They weren't going to max him out. They did ask him to take a reduction compared to a max contract. So that was one of the things that I haven't talked about, because that wasn't a priority, because he still might have stayed there if they didn't have the problem from a medical standpoint. So for me to see Kawhi back playing the type of basketball, because he's not about the fanfare. He's about getting to the gym, working on his game. And last year at this time, when people were talking about where's Kawhi want to go, he wants to be teamed with superstar, they made it clear to me, it don't matter. Just give me 4 guys that want to play basketball. I feel like in my head-to-head with LeBron James, I'm just as good. In my head-to-head with KD, I'm just as good. My head-to-head with Steph, I'm just as good as them. I just want the opportunity to get back healthy, to compete against them for world championships. And that's what he has. So I'm happy for him. I know the type of person he is, and regardless of what, if you're vocal or not, when people say mean things about you that aren't true, they're hurtful. And what happened to Kawhi? It hurt him. But he turned it into fuel to make him a better player, because he knew that it was not true. He wasn't trying to force his way out of San Antonio until they told him that he should be out there playing and didn't believe him personally. That's when everything went haywire there for the Spurs.
If I'm going to be fair here, going into the playoffs, we said there were guys who were eligible to grasp that golden ring, so to speak, if they led their teams to a championship, and if the team won the championship based in large part to their individual excellence. Giannis was on that list. James Harden, who no one ever wants to give any respect to, was on that list. Kevin Durant and Steph Curry were in a tougher spot because they were going to have to be individually exceptional to stand out from the other person. They were on that list. And Kawhi Leonard was on that list. And there is no argument about who's been the best player in these NBA playoffs. That argument is over. Kevin Durant was looking like it was clearly going to be him. But you know what? He got hurt. And that's not his fault, but you also don't get special dispensation for that. He's now missed almost as many games as he's played in these NBA playoffs. And so, in fact, he's now, do the math, he's now officially missed more games than he's actually played in these NBA playoffs. So you don't get, special credit in that regard. Giannis was playing great until Kawhi started guarding him. And then his team lost 4 games in a row. Giannis was good but not great, and they went home. Joel Embiid had a chance to put himself in that conversation, a little dark horse. And then Kawhi hit that shot. And
also,
made
Joel Embiid was consumed with explaining to the media what was wrong with him every day. He wants to get massages out on the court to be around the crowd. Kawhi's got some injuries, but he won't let us know what it is. I know exactly what it is. He's got tendonitis in his left knee, which caused his right quad to give him some problems. But he's not talking about it. Different approach.
Different approach. And So the answer to me is Kawhi gets the title. And do I believe that Kawhi's better than LeBron right now? I don't. But LeBron's not playing. And a lot of people didn't believe in 07 that LeBron was better than Kobe. But Kobe's team went home in the first round, and LeBron took a group of guys to the NBA Finals. So guess what? LeBron, for the first time ever, took the title right then and has held it up until this very moment today. But that title might be handed off, figuratively, in about 12 hours to Kawhi Leonard because he's earned it. Now, other guys can try to wrestle it back, and we could have a very interesting dynamic if and when KD leaves of all these guys having their own teams with similar supporting casts go fight for it. But if you lead this team to the NBA Finals with an excellent supporting cast, but not another superstar, with no championship history because of how great you've been, that's how this thing works in the NBA. Even if it's an unlikely candidate, you get to be the guy. Kawhi Leonard, a 15th overall pick of a draft on his second team after having his name drawn through the mud, 9 months after all that, gets to be the best player in the world from the public perspective if they finish it off tonight. And if not, they'll have a chance on Thursday. And if not, they'll have a chance on Sunday. He's got 3 bites at the apple, and I'd be shocked at this point if they don't make at least one of them count.
All right, well, then let's move from there to the other side of the